when the park, regarding whether or not you're going to have the curriculum and the standards are tied together. Well, here in Ohio, as opposed to some of these other states, Ohio has adopted college readiness standards based on the SAT and ACT scores. So these other standards, the specific testing on park and stuff is irrelevant. It's also worth noting that Ohio law allows students to substitute other tests, so we in Ohio can have that choice. Some of these other states don't. I'm going to read to you also here, because first of all, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I heard Glenn Beck the other day talking about this and how, he's behind pushing all this, but he's also behind school choice. So, he's donated to some of the school choice stuff. Common Core state standards. And this is under trigonomic functions. Understand the radian measure of an angle as the length of the arc on the unit circle subtended by the angle. Explain how the unit circle of the coordinate plane enables the extension of the trigonomic functions of all real numbers interpreted into radian measures of angles traversed counterclockwise around the unit circle. Choose trigonomic functions to model periodic phenomena at a specified amplitude, frequency, and midline. And these are the standards for our high schools, because we didn't have any before. These are the actual Common Core. You can download a rank from the website. This is on modeling functions. Create equations and inequities in a variable and use them to solve problems. Include equations arising from linear quadratic equations and simple rational and exponential functions. Create equations of two or more variables to represent relationships between quantities. Graph equations and coordinate axes with labels and scales. And you can go on and on and on through here. And if anybody reads these, you're going to say, well, hey, this seems to be reasonable. And I think if you go to there, you're going to say these are reasonable base requirements, which we didn't have before here in Ohio. I'll tell you also, I passed a bill last year called House Bill 96. It's called a dyslexia bill. This gets down to curriculum. And the fact that if you have a particular university, and I won't mention it, although they've got a very good football team here in Columbus, adopted a whole language method, which most of the schools put into their curriculum, and it actually went nationally. Problem is, if you have dyslexia, and about 10 to 20% of the students in the United States do, you need phonics to be able to learn how to read, or the Orton-Gillingham method. So we had to put in our own code here in Ohio a requirement that, hey, dyslexia is recognized, and you guys need to start teaching these other kids, not one size fits all. And with digital technology and with the changes that have occurred over the last 10 to 15 years, we could have probably individualized curriculum for every single student in the state of Ohio. Now, to some of the teachers, that's going to be a little tougher because you still have to grade them and you still have to take tests. A couple other things. The practical application to verify what works. Okay, let's say we don't have any kind of state standards and you don't, test for them. Then how do you know the taxpayers' dollars are being held accountable? How do you know that those local schools are doing their job and that your kids, when they graduate and have an actual diploma, it actually means anything? We already are having this debate in colleges because many of us, and Kasich, our governor, has done a great job of pushing this. You got a lot of students graduating from college with degrees that aren't going to do anything to help them get a job and actually earn a living. Well, we're trying to do the same thing here in high schools and in our elementaries and middle schools. We're trying to raise the standards and raise the bar. Because if you don't raise the bar and you don't have accountability, guess what? You have, as I pointed out earlier, 81% of the students in the urban districts failing to meet the proficiency requirements, which means that 81% received an F. That's going to drag down everybody, and it has been dragging down everybody because we've set our standards so low, they don't mean anything. Now, I'm getting back to the fact that the curriculum itself is the issue. And we're, Glenn Beck and company, and I'm in agreement. We need to be on top of our curriculum, and we need to be on top of it locally. But here in Ohio, it's up to the local school boards. It is not, yes it is. And if your local school boards aren't doing their jobs, then I suggest you vote them out of office. Education Committee. I do meet with many school board members. Some of them do their jobs. And I'm going to tell you, I think the teachers are trying to adapt to whatever is adapted. And so and a lot of times the teachers get blamed. Well, they're just doing what they are told by their school boards, and whatever the criteria is, it's coming down either from the state or the federal level. So when you're going to your local school boards and you're talking to them about this, you're saying, okay, what are you adopting? What is the curriculum? What are in the textbooks? That's up to you as the voters and as the individual taxpayers. You need to be holding them accountable, and if they're not, vote them out. Same thing here, and I had another point, I'm drawing a blank on it. Apples to apple comparisons. I think that's really one of the main reasons why George W. Bush and Race to the Top and all this stuff came about. You don't have an apple-to-apple comparison in the United States, between counties, between local jurisdictions. I can't tell whether or not a student graduating from Cleveland Heights is comparable with their education to a student graduating in this school district here, Olentangy. Now, I'm going to tell you this. A student graduating from Olentangy is going to most likely go on and actually get a degree and earn a decent living and raise a family that isn't going to be stuck in poverty and isn't going to have a bunch of problems. So, you know, you can be upset at the overall standards, but we need to continue raising. We need to hold our local elected officials accountable to make sure that they're doing their job. So, I've got a couple other points, and I'll remember probably in a bit.
I'll just reaffirm